This is the Authentic Dating series brought to you by Ahmad and David,
where we explore what it takes to have a dating life you're excited about.
Hi, I'm David.
I'm Ahmad.
And this is the Authentic Dating series.
Wow, we have an amazing episode for you today with the most amazing Hayley Quinn. She's been in the dating industry for over 10 years now?
Yeah, over 10 years.
We've known her for just as long time, I think.
Yeah. She's come a really long way. She's been at the kind of crux of kind of the UK dating industry for easily 10 years now, and she knows what it was like to date when there was no apps, and she was coaching men in those days. I remember there's an event we ran about 9 years ago, and she came down and did a talk, didn't she? Ultimate Man Conference. So we've known her a long time, and we've seen her grow into an amazing woman, amazing businesswoman that is delivering high quality dating advice and help to people all over the world.
Well, I'd actually say she's like a household brand now in some ways, and she works with Match.com currently. She's like their head, not advocate or coach.
She's been in all the newspapers doing commentary around Love Island and various other kind of dating shows.
Yeah. So before we get into the episode, let's tell us a little bit about us. So obviously, Authentic Dating Series podcast for the new listeners. Just so you know, what we do is we really empower men to get in touch with their emotions so they can start creating the meaningful connections and passionate connections that they desire. And what we're really known for is leaving men feeling confident in who they are and showing up in a way that's naturally attractive.
And isn't that what you'd really love, to feel more naturally attractive as you are?
Well, I know it definitely worked for me.
Yeah. And me too. My story is more that I found myself just kind of serial dating and dating lots of women and feeling a bit dissatisfied. And actually, the more I learned about what it was that I want, which I think is the key thing, and started dating from that point of view, is where I'm creating really the love life that I always dreamed of having. Yeah.
And I tried copying David and I realized that didn't work either. So the podcast is like one of a few things that we're now doing. I mean, this is like season 2. And between season 1 and season 2, we started doing events and coaching. So if you're really, really keen to find out what we look like behind these microphones and what the faces for these sexy voices look like, you can find us at there are these events.
Yeah, so we've got an event called Man Up that we run with a friend of ours called Kapil. And that's really about masculinity and the areas of that for men, and how to basically be a man and learn about what it means to be a man in 2020. So we've got an event coming up on the 26th of March in London. And the kind of topic around that is how to be a man in an era of women. Yeah.
And the second event, if you can't catch us there, or even if you want to get more of us, we're going to be doing an intro talk at Single Boss networking event, where we're going to be talking to people before the event actually starts and helping people get ready for the night ahead, and just how to feel ease, and also some strategic points
about how to kind of take charge of your dating life.
Yeah. And then if you still haven't had enough of us, on the 8th of April 2020, we're going to be doing our first ever exclusive dating event along with Taylor Matched.
And that's going to be a speed dating event with a twist. So what we're doing there is we're going to, speed dating always feels very mechanical, very much like, what do you do for work? Where do you live?
Well, surface level, right?
Yeah, it just feels really kind of boring, basically, right? It's like going to a job interview. So what we've devised, we've basically found some amazing questions. We're going to do some exercises. It's going to take you just that bit deeper, so you actually get to know the people in the room, and you can kind of, express yourself in a way that you feel safe and you can feel open to the people you meet, so that actually, instead of getting to know someone's mask, you get to know who they really are.
Yeah, and the name of that one is Deeper Dating.
Deeper Dating.
Deeper Dating.
Deeper Dating.
So,
and that's on the 8th of April. Sorry, everyone was jumped in there.
No,
and all those events are open to both genders, all genders.
All genders.
There's more than 2. We forget that. But all our events are open to all the genders. And if you want more details, you can find the links in our show notes, or you can just send us a message at hello@authenticdatingseries.com, or hit us up on Instagram. And
yeah. So, episode with Hayley, and what we have dived into with Hayley, especially with her experience in the dating world, and like David mentioned earlier, she was doing this way before the dating apps. So she has seen what has come and what has passed, and what like the dating landscape looks like today.
Yeah, so what we go into is kind of the major shifts in dating that have happened in the past 10 years, and how they're causing people all manner of stress and worry. And we actually talk about exactly how to deal with the stress and worries that, app dating is causing, the kind of all the choice that we've got, kind of how do you choose the right person? How do you, judge your values and their values and find a good match for someone? So we basically give you all the answers to all the major problems you're having right now in your dating life.
Yeah. So what you're going to learn is, how the internet revolution changed things. You're going to uncover why expectations are unrealistic, and also how to shift expectations of dating. So without further ado,
you can jump straight into the episode.
Cool. Yeah. So very excited to have Hayley on the show today. Hayley, for those who don't know, is one of UK's top dating coaches. I don't know if that's fair to say you're a top international dating coach as well now. What's the latest? I've lost touch with
I would say
fast you've grown.
It's going really fast. I think the UK is still. I have most of my subscribers are actually in North America, but London and the UK is still my kind of like homeland of dating advice. So we still run most of our events here, and I know a lot about the UK stuff. But I think when it comes to like modern dating and romance, at least when we think of like, Western Europe, England, America, Australia, so many of the problems that we're facing there are totally the same across the board.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I see that.
So Hayley and I used to work for a dating company, it was 10 years ago now. And one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about romance and dating today is because I feel like so much of the landscape has shifted since back then. It seemed like a simpler time. People would meet in person, and now it's like there's a whole nother psychology and strategy to dating alone, let alone romance. And so I thought it'd be a great question to ask Hayley, because she's been heavily involved and helping people in this arena for the best part of, for all of the last 10 years. And you must have seen a huge shift in how people interact and how they are with romance today.
Totally. So I think there's like 3 major shifts that I've noticed when it comes to how people are dealing with modern dating romance. The first, which we spoke about earlier, which is obviously like the internet revolution. Like if we rewind 15 years ago to when I was a teenager, I remember there was a guy I liked, and he used to sometimes email me, and I used to literally once a week take my parents' old laptop and plug it into the wall, dial in and see if I got an email from him or not. And now I think that obviously with the internet, we have that instant form of communication. So probably another simple example of this is, do you remember that really old like dating rule, which is don't contact someone for 2 days? Yeah. That is dead. Instant messaging killed it. Now, if you don't message someone back within quickly, like a couple of hours, people are starting to think that you're not interested in them. And so we have this expectation of immediate response and connectivity that we didn't have in the past. Also, the whole internet thing brings a phrase, I think it's got its upside as well, but probably a downside is that illusion of choice. So because we kind of are tricked into feeling that there's this infinite amount of ways to meet people, sometimes I think that can stop us being kind of like humble, dare I say it, enough to do the work on ourselves or to work through something or stick with it. I also feel like our lives are just generally more hectic and less grounded. So we're more distracted by different things. Our schedules are busier. We're constantly on. So I don't think we give ourselves a lot of reflection time to work out whether we're doing something that is good for us or not. And I also think that if we look back on the past, obviously for many people, if we rewound like 50 or 100 years, that would have been a terribly restrictive time. It would be like, obviously, lots of different versions of sexuality weren't accepted. Women making the first move would be even more of a joke than it is today. But with these liberties that we now have and this freedom, we also, I think, have it can be much harder to kind of pick a road to go down, because it's not like you meet someone and you're going to have a monogamous heterosexual relationship that ends in marriage and children. Like, we used to be working with one option, and now we have like an infinite amount of options. And I think sometimes we have so many, it can be disorientating and hard to tell which way to go. So I think the volume of options, the level of freedom, the lack of pressure in some ways to actually form those relationships, lack of self-reflection around dating, and like the whole mechanism of meeting people through online dating has massively changed how we're interacting with people.
I'd say the self-reflection is like, now I see more and more the dating industry is more kind of merging with the kind of self-help industry, in terms of like getting people to look at themselves and how they're acting and how they're being, instead of always kind of pointing the finger at the other end.
Yeah, I think so. I think when I often talk about this because you may know I work with kind of men and women quite equally. And when we talk about dating, often when we ask a question about it, we always make it about the other person. It's like, why won't he commit? Or, why don't women make the first move? We always kind of make it a problem outside of ourselves, when I think most of the good solutions to dating are actually more like an internal fix. So it's something that we have to, kind of work on within ourselves. So for instance, instead of just being like, oh, this is a good example, how do I get this person? That's a question that I get a lot on the DMs. Like, how do I get them? It's like, I must have them. And then you just, like, the obvious question, I'm sure you'd be down this as well, AJ, to ask back is like, well, why do you think you need that person so much? Why is that person's approval so important to you? Why do you feel like the outcome of meeting that person has to be a sexual relationship with them? It's like, those are the better questions to ask yourself, rather than making it all about how one other person is reacting to you. But I think in dating, we often forget that, most of things aren't actually that no one wants relationships anymore, or like dating apps have ruined everything. I still think most of our dating success is just down to ourselves as people.
Yeah, so because we made some points before we recorded, and we were thinking, like, I know Dave, you had some around expectations, which Hayley covered, like people having too many expectations about other people. And one of the things that I thought of is just how, because there's so many opportunities and not just opportunities, options. Like, do I go speed dating? Do I do this online? Do I go down to the local barn party?
Barn party.
Yeah. Like, how do I get into this? And then really like getting like an analysis paralysis is what comes to my mind. There's just too many options, and then people just they lose the humanness of it all. And that's what I sense in a lot of people, is they've lost connection with what I get a sense of is they've lost connection with what they actually want, and feeling free to discover what it is they want. And everything feels like it's a bit of a flow chart. If I'm not this, then it has to be that. I have to do online, or I have to go speed dating. Like, there's no other way in which I could find a suitable partner.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So I've also come downstairs to bring my Diet Coke upstairs. Getting this is what happens when you forget you're doing Instagram Live. You have to get all sorted. Yeah, so I would say that the thing that connects with me most about that is, I do think with modern dating, or maybe this has always existed, we can sometimes, I think, end up looking for someone, and my favourite phrase is to complete our own personal mythology, which means that we're not just looking to do the work, if you want a committed relationship, to commit and really try to connect with someone and build that and do all that stuff. Oh, no. We are looking for like a Hollywood perfect spark and romantic connection, and for someone to come into our lives and suddenly, because they are so awesome, make sense of all the mistakes that we may have made in the past, like to give us fulfillment and meaning, and that they'll also be helpfully packaged up in a way that the rest of society thinks they're hot,
Yeah.
So it's like, it's as if we all living in some sort of Hollywood movie or Disney film, that we think that we deserve like Prince Charming to come and kiss us and wake us up from our sleep.
Yeah, I think that we also, well, don't you think that's the nature of things? We're on Instagram as well. Don't you think that's kind of the nature of the modern world, that we all have our own like personal brand or Instagram, and we're all very individualistic, and so we think and expect that there's this super special destiny outcome designed for all of us. And I think in a way, like I'm probably, especially as I've got older, become more of a fan of like the old school version of dating, which is actually you're looking for a part. If you're looking for a relationship, which you might not be and you don't have to be, but if you are, you might be looking for someone who's really willing to make that connection with you, who gives you their time, who has similar values, who could be a friend to you. You know, it's like all of those much more like humble everyday qualities. I think that's what actually builds successful long-term relationships, not necessarily having like the biggest spark on the first date, or someone having a helicopter, or someone having modeled at some point in the past. So I think if we can get away from that really superficial objective stuff and actually start looking out for people who contribute to our lives, you know, in a consistent and daily basis, I think that's a much better framework for relationships. And I think that's probably more similar to that, more sort of like, I think they said that the old school version of marriage, I'm talking like from our, like maybe our grandparents' generation, was more of a good enough is good enough, you know, like this is a workable solution. You know, this person lives down the road, our families get on, we have a similar industry, we're going to help one another. You know, the expectation bar for what a long-term relationship would be was way lower. Then since then, we've had all of this kind of, they say that love has an amazing PR campaign. Like we've had all these books, all these Walt Disney movies, adverts, all telling us that actually that's not what a relationship is like. In fact, our relationship is going to be this, like I said, like pseudo mystical experience. So then, you know, when you meet someone off of Tinder, it's no surprise really that it doesn't match up.
Yeah. I guess it's the expectation, right? That we all expect there to be something beautiful and, like you said, quite mystic, quite spiritual to occur on this first date that kind of bonds us together in this magical way that's can't even be explained to other human beings. And then, you know, they're a helicopter pilot and you own helicopters that need flying, and then everything superficial comes together beautifully. But in fact, we should be looking for people who are kind of willing to look at us as imperfect human beings and grow with us.
Yeah, I'm definitely hearing the things that stand out to me from what's being said so far is a focus. Well, there's expectation, but I also see where does that come from, and it's a sense of like perfectionism and getting this completely right, like having the perfect partner and being led to believe that because we have so much choice, that absolutely idyllic perfect partner exists out there. Because we also, you know, we live in a world now where you can pretty much like bespoke any particular thing, whether it's a car or trainers or your socks or your shirt. And it's like, well, why can't I do the same with dating?
I think it's also like, it's where if you are doing online dating, you sit there and you swipe through constantly. You might swipe through hundreds of people in a day or two, right? And then you see that you're like, I really like that girl's nose. Oh, this guy is a banker. That's really nice. I like that. Oh, this guy's got a great body. And you start to kind of create this Frankenstein human being that you'd like to meet, but they don't actually exist in the world. You've just created them in your mind, and you're walking around hoping that you're going to meet Frankenstein, and they have all the things you want together.
I like that Frankenstein idea, and I've got an addition to the Frankenstein.
Go on.
I might swipe that. It's apart from the Frankenstein thing, I think it's also like, because we have such major expectations of what this person is going to bring into our lives, when we meet someone who ticks a few kind of superficial boxes on that list, like they look right, they're doing the right career, you know, you have a really, you know, you have a bit of a spark or some sexual chemistry on your first date, then suddenly your mind goes from like 0 to 100, joins the dots, and it's like, there's Frankenstein. I knew it, you know? And it's like, you kind of predict and project that this person is going to be this perfect human being and that your romantic relationship is going to unfold in a particular way, when you actually haven't really done the due diligence of getting to know that person. So you're falling in love not with a real person or a real human, but with someone that you've projected or someone that you hope to meet.
Like you fall in love with the story.
Yeah.
You fall in love with the story that hasn't even happened yet. And you basically, sometimes I see it, and I've even seen it in myself actually sometimes, where you go on a date or two and you're like, oh, this person's great, they're fun, they're into the things I like. And then before you know it, you find yourself being like, I want to go on holiday in a few months' time. Like, they'd be great to take on holiday. And then I catch myself and think, that's ridiculous. You know? I've heard stories from guys where, you know, after a few dates, they're thinking about asking someone to go with them to Bali. And I'm like, that's a big move.
Yeah, and I think the best, again, it kind of goes back to that other idea of when you feel like you really want or need someone, like you really need an outcome, or you really want to have a relationship with this person, or like, you know, you've had a few good dates and then you discover they don't want the same kind of relationship as you. So how do you make it work? And again, we're all going down the wrong path. It's like, relationships shouldn't be built from, you meet this one person and you judge them to be so like, okay, maybe Frankenstein isn't such a good metaphor, like so superhuman, right? And so amazing that suddenly you'll start to compromise on all your values around the relationship and what relationship style you want in order to retain this person in your life, versus going, actually, we haven't even built the relationship yet. They haven't even contributed yet because we've just got to know one another. And if at this early interval of building the relationship, we're looking at the foundations and the two halves of our map are showing the things that don't match up or align, then, you know, maybe it's about letting that person go and not thinking that person, just by having that strong impact straight away, that kind of entitles them or makes them go in at position number one in your life.
So there's a general sense of like people really needing clarity for themselves around what they really want and who they really are, before really, you know, finding, like, just seeking to find someone else to fit that, to actually understand that from a personal point of view. Because I see like a lot of people just going on dates hoping that like the dating app itself or the particular events or the particular partner that they've met will fulfill these things for them and figure it out for them, as opposed to them actually having to figure out, well, what's going on for myself? Like, why is it like I can speak from my own experience of in former relationships where I had massive compatibility issues, but it was mostly me being very, very picky internally. And then over the years, and like to get to where I am today, it's been about really understanding, on one hand, like what's realistic, like what we're talking about, the Frankenstein picture, but really being realistic about, well, how compatible with myself am I expecting another person to be? Are they supposed to be a perfect match? Are they supposed to second guess my every fucking move? And for me personally, I was like, well, that's obviously not a realistic person. And now I'm in a relationship now, and it's a much more beautiful and free flowing thing where I don't know if compromise is the right word, or complementary is a better word.
Yeah, I don't think compromise is bad. I think compromise is like, it's got to be really up there. If we had to do a list of qualities that you would need to make a relationship work. And I think that I don't understand where, as you said, compromises suddenly become like this disappointing thing. Like, oh, because I'm having this person, as you said, because they don't have perfect alignment and don't like exactly the same things as me, that somehow that means we're not destined to be together. I think that actually, to me, it's about your ability to work through that, communicate, accept one another's differences. And when you have those differences, to keep coming back to the table to try to work things through. Again, that's what builds the relationship. Like, my partner loves all forms of adventure sports. And like, I will cry. I cried the last time I got on a flying fox. It was a mess, you know? But I'm not there going, oh God, that's it. That's the end. It's doomed. You know, we can never go to this, you know, monkey adventure land together, or screw doing a skydive. You know, I'm not going to take those surfing lessons. And to me, I'm just like, okay, well, you know, because one person also shouldn't be satisfying everything for you, right? We should be getting different points of connection from a wide variety of people in our lives. And that's why I feel like that kind of older idea of having neighborhood, family, community, where we would source our various emotional needs through a wide kind of variety of people, we've kind of lost that. And instead we've kind of gone on this quest for the Frankenstein one, who has managed to have all this, like, these perfect qualities that just don't exist. And then ultimately, when you're looking for someone who's just perfectly aligned with you and has 100% compatibility, again, you're not really looking for another human being that's going to bring their own flaws and difficulties and past into a relationship, as is to be expected. You're kind of objectifying that person and probably looking for something that doesn't actually exist.
Yeah, it's interesting you say about um, community, because I've more and more I speak to some of my friends who are in quite long-term relationships and they're struggling for intimacy, and I see it as what's always obvious to me when intimacy starts to struggle is that there's too much closeness. There's too
Mm.
much sameness together, like where you're spending all your time together, you do all things together. The only thing they don't do together is work. When actually, when we had, I'll take it back to, I was in Ethiopia last year and I was down visiting some of the tribal people in the south of the country. And one of the things I really noticed there with the couples is you would have never known who was together and who had children together.
Mm.
Because in the day, the women just spent the time with the women, with the children. The men went out all day and looked after all the cattle, basically. And in the evening, they came together and spent time together. But what they had was like, they had separateness. There was a space between for the mystery of like, of intimacy to thrive, but also not necessarily intimacy, but to kind of the mystery that's left in between for them to kind of have some romance,
Mm.
which is often really lacking in a lot of kind of modern day relationships, because people spend so much time together because they expect that this other person is their everything, their best friend, their therapist, their lover, like when actually it's really unrealistic, because you need to get your stimulus from a wide variety of humans.
Mm.
Yeah, and I like the idea of, I'm going to shout out Esther Perel here, who's obviously nailed it on this one, which says like that it's that, as you said, that separateness that breeds intimacy and sexual desire between people. Like if we have full knowledge of everything, and I think again, it's a really like modern Western idea around, full transparency, full truth, full, access all areas to other areas of people's lives. When we're at that, we don't have that sense of sexual intimacy. So I like what you said about actually also having time to explore and enjoy, not necessarily in a sexual way, but just like platonic friendships or friendships with people of, the same sex as you, to create space for that as well.
Mm.
Because I think a lot of the time people will say, feel a bit like the classic is to say, oh, no one loves me. When you're thinking, well, actually, your friends and your family probably do love you. And just because their love isn't expressed in this, romantic relationship doesn't mean it's actually less valid. So I think for people, it's just a really good, obviously, long-term dating truth that if you prioritize your non-romantic relationships, if you consider, you wouldn't cancel on your friend just to have the chance at getting a date last minute with that person. If you have supportive friendships, which already meet so many of your emotional needs, that you're not feeling like, oh man, I really need to get a girlfriend or I really need to get a boyfriend in order to have that need resolved. And even when you're in dating, I'm a big fan at the early stages of dating of just like pacing stuff. So instead of kind of going for the romantic version of, oh, we just met and then we spent the whole next week together, we never wanted to leave one another's sight. Instead of doing that, which, okay, sounds very romantic, but to me, I'm also thinking, well, you do have another life to live, and everything that you've got in your life at the moment is giving you a lot of, stability, and it's helping to prop up your self-esteem. So you want really someone who's going to work within the infrastructure of your existing life, who's going to respect your time and is going to, not immediately expect to be at number one pole position in your life after just meeting you on the basis of a spark. So because of that, I think slowing stuff down and seeing how your lives can grow together is always smarter.
Yeah, I think it's sometimes it's like kind of a mixture of priorities and boundaries, and going like, in my life, maybe my top priority is my business, the next thing is my family, then are my friends, and then after that comes this person that you just met last week on Tinder who wants to date you. Do you know what I mean? And going, okay, I can fit you in amongst this, but I think a lot of the trap that a lot of people fall into is being like, well, I'm looking for the love of my life, and the love of my life would take priority over all of those people and all of those things. So anyone that comes in instantly goes to number one, because they're like a priority number one of, love of my life, question mark. And that leads to all this kind of dysfunctional behavior as well.
Yeah, I like that as well. And I think also it's really good to, instead of like, again, looking for the love of your life, I think there's two good questions that you brought up there, which is one, what are my priorities? It might be that dating is not a priority for you right now, and that's okay. It doesn't need to be. Your priority could be work or fitness or friends or spirituality or wellness, or whatever it might be. So I think that you don't have to at all times have something in that area of your life. Secondly, if it is a priority though, you then do have to create some space and time for it. So, a classic objection might be, oh, I don't want to go to yoga to meet women because I prefer to go to the gym and like get those biceps going. And that's fine. But like you might want to 80-20 that and give 80% of your fitness time towards your fitness and 20% towards the opportunity to meet new people. And then you also mentioned about not letting someone jump in at like priority space number one in your life. And I think that's all to do with expectation, right? It's like, as we said earlier, it's like meeting someone, they seem to tick all the boxes, personal mythology fulfilled. You think you're over the finish line, that your prince or princess has finally turned up, when instead, really, again, that is happening without them demonstrating any of the most like fundamental stuff, which is like consistency, time, willingness, effort, acceptance, compromise, like all of those really weighty relationship orientated qualities. By their nature, you only get to see them over a period of time. So therefore you can kind of like, what I think people struggle with, particularly in modern day dating, is this idea of not being really comfortable in that unknown. And I think when we're in the unknown, I mean, like, you don't know if this is a significant relationship or not. Is this going to go on for a long time or not? Do they want the same things as you or not? Like, all of those questions are mind-boggling, and I think you just don't know at the start of the dating process. So I think sometimes to overcome the discomfort of the not knowing and that uncertainty, we almost want to jump to the conclusion of, yes, this person is the right person for me. Tick, 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 tick. They've completed all the boxes, because sometimes that feels easier to get ahead of yourself rather than actually to go, you know what, it's too early to tell, or I just need to get to know this person better, or, I'm curious about them, or I'm quite attracted to them, but, we've only just met. And I think if you keep grounded and actually you take things at that slower pace and you have more realistic everyday expectations, I feel like dating just goes better.
I think there's just this, it's a modern way of living, isn't it? I think it's bigger than just dating. It's like we don't deal well with uncertainty, and also we're so used to having everything like now that when we don't know or something hasn't come to us as fast as we want it to, we just panic.
That instant living, that instant lifestyle.
Yeah.
Having everything in immediacy. I was going to ask like around like what your views and takes on like how people could foster more romance in their relationships and what they're creating. But already I feel like you've covered this in what you've said around people actually slowing things down. I get it's a funny world we live in where all of a sudden we've gone from let's speed everything up to everyone's like, whoa, let's slow everything down and take our time. And it really reminds me of something we had on a previous episode with Ross, who you probably, I don't know if you remember Ross, Rusty Ross. Yeah. And he said something really cool, which was like around people should go into dating with more of a business mindset, but not be wearing their heart on their sleeve initially. Whereas a lot of people tend to jump straight into dating with their heart and like, oh, I want this, I want that. And I would definitely, and then they're too eager, too thirsty. And then in this thirst, I'll run along with this theme. Yeah, this thirst can really confuse them and leave them like, just not clear on what is actually happening and between what they want and what's actually happening. So I'm also aware of the time now, and I know you've got to jump off soon, Hayley. Mm-hmm. So is there any final tidbits of information, or just to summarize the basic tenets of what you're saying? Because from talking to you, it sounds like, this is something you've seen thousands of times with various clients.
Totally.
And people
Yeah, and I've also just seen a message there from somebody called Grey Rift asking about what's the difference between, trying to develop for a short-term sexual relationship versus a longer-term, more committed relationship. And I'd like to acknowledge that, first of all, neither of those goals is necessarily like morally superior to the other. It's just good to recognize what you want at every stage in your life. So to kind of wrap up on the modern dating theme, I think a few points we've acknowledged, like due to the technology revolution, our ability to instantly message people, the fact that we follow people on Instagram and feel like we know what their lives are about, our expectation to have everything that we want perfectly tailor-made to us at the click of a button, and our just shifting expectations around dating and relationships generally have left a lot of people, both men and women of all different orientations, just thoroughly confused as to how to go through modern dating. And what I want to say is, I guess, first of all, I think fundamentally most people still want the same things. It's not like we're living in this era where people no longer want intimacy or relationships or connection or sex. People still want all of that stuff. But I think the pathway to getting there feels more confusing than it did previously. I think that the best two pieces of advice that we probably covered during this kind of like podcast and video, which relate to building things more slowly, are two things. One, if you're not getting the results that you want, don't make it about modern dating is broken or dating apps have ruined everything, or all no men want commitment, or women don't want to meet men anymore. Like, let's just get away from that whole conversation and instead make it about you, because you're the person that can change. And actually, I still believe in each individual's power when it comes to their own mindset, their outlook, their attitude, their actions can really change everything. So rather than thinking, how do I get this person? Ask yourself, why do I want them so much? So keep reversing the question, make it actually about yourself and where you're at with things. Secondly, don't seek to meet a perfect tick box person straight off the bat. And then, because you've seen them, they've got those qualities that, catch your attention. Suddenly you want that person to be in a significant relationship with you. What makes a significant relationship is actually those really long run or qualities that have to be demonstrated over a period of time. When you first meet someone, you can't possibly know what their intentions are, how open they're being, how authentic they are, how consistent they're able to be, how emotionally available they are. They might not even know those things for themselves. So instead of just meeting people and trying to decide prematurely whether someone is destined to be with you or not, just accept that you're in the unknown and give it time for the process to unfold. So don't put people on a pedestal at the beginning. Instead, think more realistic. Think, okay, this person seems interesting, feel like I've got a connection with them, quite looking forward to going on this date on Friday, or I'm a bit curious about them, I'm looking forward to getting to know them more. But keep your expectation level set at that level. Don't go beyond it, because consistency, willingness, acceptance, compromise, someone's time, all of those things are only demonstrated after you've known someone quite a long period of time. So give yourself permission and time to not have all the answers immediately, and don't always go for what glitters, and catches your eye straight away. Try to go through the process with more people and then figure out in real life what actually works for you.
Wow. That's an incredible recap.
Yeah, that was thanks, Hayley. That was amazing. That was a little book in itself. Yeah, that was really
When
cool.
will you be releasing that as a small ebook? That small section there.
No, that was beautiful, Hayley. It's been a great chat with you. Thanks so much for making the time to jump on. It's been lovely having you on.
Where can our listeners find you if they're interested in hearing more of your stuff or finding you?
She's everywhere.
I will say this. First of all, I answer a lot of questions on the gram. So if you can find me on Instagram at Hayley Quinn X, it's HAYLEYQUINNX. Or you can go to my website, hayleyquinn.com. We run so many events for men and women. Also, we proudly work with men, women, people of all different orientations and backgrounds, because we kind of believe that dating isn't about men or women playing one another. In fact, actually, a lot of things as people we have in common, and most people want the same things.
Cool. Amazing. Well, thanks, Hayley. And until next time. Ciao.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys. Bye.
So I hope you enjoyed that amazing episode. If you want to find out more about what we're up to, you can head over to our website at www.authenticdatingseries.com. You get all the information about our upcoming events. And if you're interested in coaching with us, we are offering coaching just hit us up with a DM or send us an email at hello@authenticdatingseries.com.
Yeah, like the coaching's really taking off. Like we've got a few coaching clients at the moment. I think we probably need to take on a couple more, where we're just helping them really shift in their dating mindset, and also like get in touch with what it is they want and how to get what they want when it comes to their dating lives and in relationships. And even we're delving into some really great work around sexual expression and how that affects your dating expression and your day-to-day expression with the people you want.
Yeah, to tell you a little bit more about like the impact of that with current clients that we're working with, in just 1 month, like the major shift that they have with their personal expression with the people around them. And I love the work that we do in regards to their clothing as well, and just looking at that. And our aim is not that everyone looks the same. You know, we're called the Authentic Dating Series. It's all about you showing up authentically and becoming naturally attractive.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you for listening to the episode. It's been an absolute banger of an episode. There's a lot of knowledge in there, so you probably want to go back with some notes and re-listen. But yeah, big thanks to Hayley. She gave all the details how to find her, but Instagram I know is a place that she hangs out a lot, and she gives a lot of information. And actually to say congratulations to her, because she's probably pregnant still when we listen to this, and she'll be giving birth soon, so that's beautiful to hear as well.
Oh.
So, ciao.
Ciao.